rivalries are what builds great moments for sport.
Going back, the heavyweight division years ago, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, what incredible fights they were,
The big rivalry at the moment, of course, is AJ and Tyson Fury. We're never going to get two British world heavyweight champions at the same time who could fight each other to find out who the best heavyweight is in the world. And it's a must-see fight. It's the biggest fight in world boxing.
Eddie, welcome to the show, mate.
Morning, guys. How we doing?
Eddie, yeah, we're good, mate. How are you?
Just what we wanted, another podcast. I mean, how many of these have we done doing Zoom?
I know, I bet when they rang up, believe me, I keep getting them myself, Ed, believe you me.
Eddie, thanks for coming on the show, mate. Harry, how did you know Eddie's dad?
Well, Barry, obviously, he was managing chairman at Leyton Orient, and but obviously knew of him long before, from the way back to the snooker days were probably the first days. I think his dad became a household name, and then and obviously he was the chairman at Leyton Orient for years, and I actually lent him 3 players when I was at Tottenham when they were struggling. He rang me up and said, "Harry, we're struggling." He said, "We're bottom of the league. Got any players?" I said, "I've got 3 kids here you can have. They're not bad." I said, "There's Harry Kane, Andros Townsend and Ryan Mason, beg your pardon." And they all went on and played for England, all 3 of them. And I shut up the table like you wouldn't believe, Leyton Orient. So actually we should have had a bet before we sent them there. I think that would have been the game.
The mad thing was, Harry, as well, is that the best of those players at Orient was probably Andros.
Yeah.
And Harry Kane, who is a lovely, lovely young man, and we were watching Harry thinking, it shows what we know about football. We were going, he's decent, but let's be honest, he ain't never going to make it, at the top level. And, the improvements that he made was unbelievable.
Do I always said, Eddie, and I've gone public with this over the years, I think your dad should have been running English football. I know he probably wouldn't want to do it. There wasn't enough money in it for him to be chairman of the FA. they wouldn't have been able to afford him. But I would love to, just think he, as you know, listen, whatever he's touched over the years, he's just turned, he can just turn it. And I just think being in his knowledge and everything, business and understanding of sport, I think he'd have been amazing to have been running English football. I really do. It was. But he probably had enough on his plate running Leyton Orient for all them years.
Yeah, I think Orient was. It was such a massive part of our life for so long because it consumes you, But it was one of the few times I've actually seen him miserable, because when we lost, he was gutted.
And when you were growing up, man, what did you want to do? What did you want to? Do you like football?
I think looking back. I went to school with Frank Lampard. He was the year above me at Brentwood, and I was obnoxious because I was Barry Hearn's son. I was going to this show, that show, to New York to watch Naz, go to Manchester to watch Eubank, and I was going to the Crucible at the weekend, seeing Steve Davis play. And I was horrible, just a flash Harry. I was 12, 11, 12, 13.
Flash Eddie.
But I think I always had, looking back now, the whole thing about being Barry's, it was always, he's Barry's boy. Come in. No one really knew my name. I was just Barry Hearn's son.
Yeah.
And I think growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just loved sport. Had a lot to say for myself. Did have the gift of the gab as well. I'd go to, when my dad was doing the shows, I would sell the programmes, at York Hall or wherever we were, just out there, £2. And, I was limited at school because I had a problem with authority. I was living this kind of lifestyle where, like I said, I'm here, I know Lennox Lewis and I know Bruno. And then I've got this maths teacher telling me, Hearn, and I'd think, who are you? Terrible attitude now. Looking back, I'm embarrassed. But, it was, I guess when I was growing up, there was an underlying sort of desire that would come out eventually, that I wanted to be my own person. I didn't want to be Barry Hearn's son. I wanted, and we laugh about it now because people go up to him and say, "Oh, you're Eddie Hearn's dad." Yeah. It's the greatest thing. But I suppose it's quite difficult, growing up. And obviously Jamie had it with you, and Frank had it with Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah. At school, Frank was always Frank Lampard's son.
Yeah.
Even though his name was Frank.
Yeah.
And Harry, when he got in the West Ham team,
Oh.
the whole world said it was because his dad got him in. I remember being at Brentwood School, and after school he would be on the field with his dad, and they would be working, right? The impression at school was always that the dad was just pushing Frank all the time. Like, it was almost like sometimes he didn't even want to do it, but after school he'd be out there practicing. And you've seen over the years the work that he's put in.
Yeah.
And how he's become one of the greatest England players of all time.
Absolutely,
and he never, when we were playing football at school, he never shone in that way. He was always had unbelievable ability.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, you get a kid at 13 or 14, you think, wow. He was chubby, he was a little bit slow at times. And when I had him on the podcast recently, he just said, look, I just accepted to myself there were some things that I was never going to be able to do as a footballer, or some things that I wasn't blessed with. But you know what? I'm going to work so hard on all the things that I can do, and I'm going to get better at, getting in the box. I'm going to get a better engine. I'm going to get better. And he's, I think what he's done is incredible, really. I really do.
But you must have seen that in boxing, Ed, with so many fighters with good ability who really, what he did, he was dedicated. He wanted to improve. He just worked so hard, as you said, at his game. And you must have that with boxers. You must see lads come and think, my God, he's got a chance. And then suddenly they don't want to put the hard graft in to actually get to the top.
Yeah, I think it's the same in all sports, isn't it? I've seen so many talents over the years in boxing that you see come in the gym, you watch the spars, and they're either bad livers or they haven't got the mentality, and I reckon that's no much more so than football.
Yeah, oh yeah. We used to get on the train, Ed, we'd go to Newcastle or somewhere and get beat 4-0 on a Saturday afternoon, West Ham. We'd get on the train coming home. Morrow would be in one, Bobby would be in the carriage with him, and Frank Senior and Brian Deere, a few, he'd have 5 or 6 of them. Morrow would say, Stuart, how many lagers you got on board? He'd say 6 cases, bring them in. He'd pile up the lagers. By the time we got back to Euston, there wouldn't be a lager. They'd done the lot, But that was how it was in them days, Eddie. It was Bobby's motto was win or lose on the booze. It was scary.
Harry, what was Bobby like back in the day?
Morrow was different class. He was a fantastic. Not only he was the best player, he was the best character. He was just an amazing person. He was the leader of the football club. And if you'd have gone to watch him play, you talk about talent, Ed. If you'd have gone and watched him, you'd have said, well, is he quick? No, he can't run. Good in the air? No, he can't really head it. He's centre half, plays alongside. How tall is he? He's 5'11". Oh, he's not big enough. You'd have wrote him off straight away. But he had this football brain that put him in a position. He used to read the game. He'd be in a position. He never got at full stretch. He was always in control. And he used to go up with the centre forward, make out a jump. The centre forward would flick it on, and Bobby would catch it on his chest. Most centre halves or whatever would go challenging the centre forward, not being able to win the ball, fouling, pushing them or whatever. Bobby never did. He never used to get his shorts dirty, did he, more? Yeah. And he'd come off. He was just immaculate. Amazing football brain.
Eddie, moving back to boxing, mate, who are the biggest characters in boxing for you?
When you look back, I spent most of my early years growing up with Chris Eubank. I was probably 10 when I first met him. And, over those 4 or 5 year periods, this guy turned up in my dad's office. He was almost living rough in Atlantic City. Come over to England. He didn't have a bean, not a bean, and walked into my dad's office and said, I'm not going. I want to meet you. And I want to talk about, I'm going to go on. And their story together, over that probably 5 or 6 year period, was amazing. He's the most, he's a pain in the arse, and he's so eccentric. Every boxer has a great story, because every fighter comes from, adversity or a lack of opportunities or the wrong side of the road where it's, boxing has saved them. When you look at AJ Anthony Joshua, he was in trouble as a kid, got arrested, was really, he didn't really have any way out, and walked into Finchley Boxing Club one day, and it changed his life forever.
Eddie, so lots of people think that you're actually AJ's manager because, they see always you're doing his fights or whatever. But, they don't realise it. You promote. He actually has got a manager, has he?
Yeah, so the manager, sort of the management is more of the day-to-day stuff. You know, it might be handling his appearances or his commercial sponsorships and stuff like that. I promote his fights. Yeah. So you know, we have a great relationship together where, you know, I signed him. I remember going up to the Institute of Sport in Sheffield, which is where he trained as an amateur. It's where the GB team go. And I was going up there to see Carl Froch, who trained up there. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I just heard this noise, like, and I knew it was the sound of a heavy bag. And I turned around, and this Adonis was just knocking 7 kettles out of the big heavy bag that, you know, you'd struggle to move. And I said to Rob McCracken, I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "That's Anthony Joshua." I said, "Blimey, can he fight?" He went, "Oh, can he fight?" He said, "You know, 18 stone, you know, but he's been in trouble, but he's up here now and he's got in the Olympics." And I thought to myself, don't win the Olympics, because if you win the Olympics, it's going to cost me a lot of money when you turn pro. Do
you think Anthony Joshua will ever fight Dillian Whyte again, Eddie? Because I think the British public would love that.
That was, when you talk about sort of tough guys and, you know, people who can have a fight, that was probably the most uncomfortable build-up I've ever had, because you got one guy out of North London, one guy out of South London. They boxed in the amateurs, and they had problems back there. All the teams don't like each other. And you would get into a stage where, you know, we'd do a press conference and people wouldn't see that obviously Dillian Whyte and his 5 or 6 guys are over there, and AJ, and they're staring at each other. Like they want to fight then, not in a ring. They want to do it then and there. And, you know, the build-up to that fight was uncomfortable. The fight itself at the O2 was unbelievable. I mean, it nearly got called off after the first round because Dillian Whyte basically attacked Anthony Joshua after the bell, and all the corner team got in the ring, and Tony Sims and Peter Sims, you know, they're in there like almost wanting to have a row with the other. I mean, it was just like, but the drama, rivalries are what builds great moments for sport. The big rivalry at the moment, of course, is AJ and Tyson Fury. Yeah. You know, we're never going to get 2 British world heavyweight champions at the same time who could fight each other to find out who the best heavyweight is in the world. It's never existed. I mean, Lennox Lewis reigned for a long time, but there was always the question marks. This is one of those rare moments in boxing where 2 guys can fight each other and there can be absolutely no doubts who the best heavyweight on the planet is. 2 completely different guys, 2 completely different personalities. And it's a must-see fight. It's the biggest fight in world boxing.
Yeah, it'll be a fantastic fight.
Eddie, thank you for coming on the show, buddy.
Right, thanks, boys. Eddie.
Cheers, Eddie.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, mate.